What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moment of Clarity, the realignment of the cultural paradigm, the readjustment of the national mindscape. Let's do it, shall we? It's fucking needed. We need it now. I got a great guest for you today. Chris Mohan, comedian, friend, opens for my shows on the road. And anyway, we're going to hang out with him in a moment. So thank you guys for joining me. Please take a moment to share this, to let other people know. If you're watching this live and not watching it later, all the Super Chat donations will be going to mutual aid organizations around the nation, as I did yesterday. Mutual aid helps people get food, helps people get supplies, helps people out in other ways in the cities around the nation. They don't get it paid for it. It's completely volunteer. It's communities helping each other. So if you donate to the Super Chat, all the proceeds will be going to that. And you can rest assured it will not be wasted on some of these, big corporate charities where they pay themselves 90% of the donations. But anyway, let's get into it. Before I bring Christian, I just wanted to start off by talking about one of these stories. Joe Biden, big news. This is huge. He has announced that there's a Biden executive order ends Department of Justice private prison contracts. Oh, my God. This is going to change our lives. This is going to do it. It's all happening, man. The private prison industry, it's collapsing. Our Joe Biden is fucking there, man. It's all happening. That's what you might believe, unless you actually look in to what the fuck this is. So Joe Biden, big statement, executive order. This is one of these that sounds great when you're just reading the headline and then you start thinking about it, start looking at it. But before I get to what some of it says, which is hilarious, but here's the main point. The order, this executive order that Joe Biden has done to change our private. Now, many of you, to back up a little, many of you know that many of our prisons are private prisons owned by corporations. Many states sign contracts with these corporations to make sure that the prisons remain full. So the states have a conflict of interest to arrest people, to lock them up, to put them in prison. It's completely fucked. Private prisons should not exist, just like private healthcare shouldn't exist. You heard me talk about that before? But anyway, the order, Biden's executive order, here's where you get into the nitty-gritty. Will affect around 14,000 federal inmates currently incarcerated in private prisons. Now, this is only federal private prisons. So the federal government does not have many private prisons. Most private prisons, and yes, I realize I'm saying private prisons a lot. Most private prisons around the country are state, so they're not federal. So that's why it's so few inmates, 14,000. Or about 9% of federal prison population. Okay, 9%, not great, but okay, I'll take it. And then you keep reading. It's 0.6% of the 2.3 million people incarcerated in U.S. prisons and jails. 0.6%. So I'm not saying that you can't talk about this, that you can't be glad this is happening, but don't act like Joe Biden has done anything spectacular for you. Don't act like Big Uncle Joe is saving the planet because 0.6% of inmates will no longer be housed in private prisons. And let's also be clear, this does not mean he's releasing these people, many of whom were probably locked up for crimes they shouldn't have been locked up for, many of whom are fucking jailed for goddamn no reason. This does not mean they're being released. This means they will be transferred to a non-private prison. So he's getting rid of the privatized prisons for 0.6% of our inmates in this country. Now might be a good time for a little history lesson as to how we ended up with the largest prison industrial complex in the world, with more people per capita locked up, more people total locked up. It's a complete crime against humanity. Other countries would be completely justified in looking at the United States and going, well, we can't do business with them because they are involved in crimes against humanity, right? That's what we say we do with other countries, right? We're putting sanctions on them because it's a crime against humanity what they're doing over there. Well, The nations around the world would surely be justified in putting sanctions on the United States for our crime against humanity. That is the largest prison state the world has ever known, which, goes hand in hand with the largest surveillance state the world has ever known as well. But to go back in the past here, and I want to say, this is what. Well, I'm not going to the past yet. This is what Joe Biden's executive order said. We've never fully, or maybe this was a speech he gave, we've never fully lived up to the founding principles of this nation that all people are, hold on one second. Founding principle of this nation that all people are created equal and have a right to be treated equally throughout their lives, Biden admitted, declaring that now it's time to act. And then down in the executive order, it says more than 2 million people are currently incarcerated in the United States, including a disproportionate number of people of color. There is a broad consensus that our current system of mass incarceration imposes significant costs and hardships on our society and communities and does not make us safer. Oh, that's interesting. Joe Biden talking about how we have 2 million people in prison right now. Joe Biden, the man who crafted the crime bill and forced through the crime bill in the 90s that fucking caused half of this. I mean, what were the number of people in prison? I don't know what it was. I know it was less than 1 million in the 90s. I know we've over doubled what our prison population was, thanks largely to Joe Biden's crime bill, which he said, quote, does everything short of hanging someone for jaywalking. Joe Biden, as his long-term racist self, has run around imprisoning as many people of color as possible across his career. And that'll be great if he has some sort of change of mind, if he's suddenly awakened and he suddenly becomes hashtag woke and he goes, oh my God, what has happened? I'd be all for that. But I'm saying I'm still waiting to see it. All right, because this executive order will not cut it. But here's my problem with it. It's not just that it's such a tiny percentage. Okay, that's problem enough. But the bigger, perhaps, issue is that your mainstream media and all your liberal elites and everything are going to run around saying, yes, look at this. Joe Biden's doing it. He's closing the privatized prisons. Joe Biden is fucking doing it. They're going to tout this. They're going to hold this up like a goddamn banner. Okay, they're going to be running around with, he closed the private prisons. 0.6% of prisoners. If he wants to show us he's different than the guy who passed that crime bill, than the guy who created the crime bill that made sure to lock up as many people of color as possible. If he wants to show us he's a new man, then he's going to have to do better than this fucking tiny 0.6% change in our prison system. It's going to have to be much larger than that. All right, to talk about this and many other stories. And by the way, all donations are going to mutual aids across the country. I keep trying to remind myself to say mutual aid groups because mutual aids doesn't sound good. That sounds like a problem if we all have mutual aids. But yes, all the donations are going to mutual aid around the country. So here now is comedian Krish Mohan.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
There you are. Okay.
There we go. Hello. How's it going?
Pretty good. How you been?
I'm all right. I'm excited. I've been at brunch nonstop for 3 weeks. That's
thanks to Biden. You've been at your Biden brunch?
Yeah, I've just been doing the Biden brunch. And after I saw the executive order, I ordered a double brunch. That's how excited I was about 0.6%.
Good.
I shut down the brunch.
I'm glad you're excited. I'm glad you're thrilled. I assume the faux hawk was a point of a celebration.
It's a celebratory.
Like, I'm going to get a celebratory faux hawk right now.
Everything was so low. I wanted my hair to point upward as well.
Because the nation, it's the trajectory of the nation.
It's
right?
the trajectory of the nation. Yeah.
It's on the upward trend.
I was like, well, my hair should reflect where the country is going. Because when I had it long, everything was pointing down. And now it's time to, even when I grow it out, I'm going to figure out a way to just have it pointed up. It's going to be a lot of weight on my neck, I think. Is what's
So,
gonna happen.
yeah. Even ignoring for a moment this private prison order that really does almost nothing. Are you excited with what you're prepared to see from Biden? Do you think he's going to create the change that this country needs right now? Do you think your day to day will be different soon?
No, I still haven't received the $600.
You didn't get the first check. What was the
No.
first check? Was 1,200, wasn't it?
The first check was 1,200, which as a self-employed touring comedian, I fell through all of the cracks. And then the $600 one, I fell through all the cracks again. And now the $1,400, I'm assuming I will fall through the cracks again, much like a bunch of other Americans. I don't expect it.
So you should have gotten the 1,200, right? Or is there a policy comedians can't get the 1,200?
No, I think I tried to look up. I tried to look it up, and when I went on the IRS website, they were just like, "I don't think you're a real person."
It might be because you're an immigrant.
It could be, but I did get my citizenship, and I also took a photo of the letter I got from Trump. So
the letter you got from Trump. I don't know if you. By the way, when he signs his name, does he draw a cock and balls there on all the citizenship forms? Because I kind of assumed he did.
I hope. I wish
that citizenship form you got though. Hold it up to the light. I'm pretty sure it's erasable ink. I'm pretty sure that's going to disappear. That's going to fade. It lasts about 6 months.
Do you feel like this executive order about this closing down federal private prisons, do you think that comes from the fact that a UK judge said that Julian Assange can't be extradited to the United States because of how horrible American prisons actually are?
That's a thought I didn't think of. Maybe in the U.S. appeal, because the DOJ is appealing it in the British courts, and maybe they're going to say, no, we're going to treat Julian Assange great. We got rid of private federal prisons.
We're not going to make money off of him being imprisoned here anymore. Isn't that exciting? Shouldn't you send this journalist to prison?
Right. Let's see if they try that move. They'll probably start, they'll probably start serving like lasagna or something in one of the prisons, and then they'll be like, now it's okay to send us Julian Assange. We're going to take good care of him. There's a lasagna.
But not great lasagna. It'll be like Olive Garden lasagna. Like it won't be authentic lasagna. Yeah.
I love that Olive Garden is now viewed as prison food. That's when you know. I don't think they say that in the ads.
No,
Olive Garden. We're all eating prison food.
We're slightly better than prison food.
What do you think of the? I talked about it yesterday with Ton Lu, who wrote The Ponzi Factor. What do you think of the GameStop revolution?
It's probably the funniest thing that's happened all year. I love that it took a bunch of Reddit nerds to expose Wall Street for exactly what it is. And I saw some NBC report where they were like really confused about how this happened. And it was some like fucking hedge fund Wall Street guy. And he was just like, this is ridiculous. You can't do stuff like this. You can't we had a lot of money invested in it. We lost over $2 billion. And it was like, yeah, that's just a small amount.
Great.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
How can you lose more is my question.
Yeah, it totally does reveal. I mean, many people have been screaming it from the hills for a long time, but it reveals how disconnected from reality Wall Street is. Wall Street is, who knows whether it was ever connected to reality, but it hasn't been in my lifetime, really. It is people just gambling on the idea of a possibility of a fucking fart of a thought. Like that is what the gambling is. And then basically these Redditors revealed it by just all fucking, buying stock in something, disconnect. And the funny thing is that the people saying, oh, this is terrible, this is awful, I can't believe they're doing this. They're trying to put forward the argument. They're not, that these people aren't buying the stock because they think the company's going to do well. They're just buying it to buy it. And it's like, yeah, fucking nothing is connected to reality. It doesn't matter whether a company's doing well. Tesla has yet to earn a profit, I believe. Like, if a fucking Amazon didn't make a profit, I think like last year was like their first year. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous, and I love that it took Janet Yellen like what 16 hours to basically come out and be like, "Oh, we're going to look into this and make sure that this sort of stuff never happens again. This is ridiculous. How can a bunch of poor people start playing our game?
Right.
They can't do that." And now what Robinhood is taking that GameStop and AMC, you can't trade with it anymore, which is like, how is that part of the free market that you
Right. So
you know?
Robinhood and I think Ameritrade, anyway, these easy trading places have put a freeze on Robinhood and AMC, and I think BlackBerry or something. And it's like yet again, it is kind of the oligarchs of the tech world deciding what is allowable or isn't allowable. And this goes against the other oligarchs. So they've decided this isn't allowable. So they put a hold on it. And it's not that, it's kind of just a different universe, but it's not that different from them realizing that us talking about certain things on YouTube is getting people to no longer believe the CNN or Fox News bullshit paradigm. And so they're like, well, let's put a freeze on that. We won't delete your channel. We'll just make it buffer forever so people think it's not working. Or, the JFK JFK assassination video I did last week, they made the video freeze like 10 minutes in or something.
Oh my God.
So
what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like
It's not that different.
They have to keep finding new ways to keep censoring people and censoring and actually letting, average Americans have any sense of power at all. And that's the thing is it took a bunch of nerds on Reddit to crash the whole system. Like which is the funny part to me is that's why you don't mess with nerds in their video games. You should just let them play fucking Fallout or Medal of Honor or whatever. Don't.
I'm nerdy about certain things, but it's video games isn't one of them. I don't even know the words you just said.
The Medal of Honor is a weird war game, and Fallout's actually a pretty fun game. I've gotten into gaming recently.
Are you one of those Twitch gamers where people can watch you with your tongue hanging out, salivating as you play?
No, I kind of just it's something to do at the end of the day after after you spend hours talking and thinking about this shit before you go to bed. I just need something to distract me.
Dude, I fucking understand, man. After a day of reading this shit, talking about this shit, writing about this shit, I need a break. I mean, your thing's gaming, my thing's heroin, so it's it's not. It's similar stuff.
Yeah, we're chasing some kind of dragon at some point.
All right, so I want to go to another Biden move here. This one might be a little better, but it's got big caveats as well. But let's see here.
This administration is basically gonna like attack the working class with technicalities. That's how they're gonna fuck over the American people
and turn off our apps whenever we fucking progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Progress towards ripping down their fucking paper paradigm that they've created. Yeah. Okay, so this is let me go to the title. Biden has asked Congress to end the $40 billion in taxpayer subsidies for fossil fuels. Biden campaigned on eliminating fossil fuel giveaways, and voters agree by a huge margin, said one climate activist. In a speech Wednesday, he called the climate crisis an existential threat. Good words. I like the words.
Right.
But he plans to ask the Democrat-controlled Congress to pass legislation eliminating the tens of billions in taxpayer subsidies of the federal government that the federal government continues to hand big oil, even as the planetary emergency wreaks havoc in the U.S. and around the globe. Now, that is great. If that happens, fuck yeah. But what I can't stand in this article is ask Congress. You fucking dick. Go do it. Just go do it. They have 51 votes. Fucking do it. Okay? They've got the Senate. They've got the House. I mean, and this is actually, this goes along with what's happening right now with the COVID, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, is they could force it through. Bernie Sanders has said on television that they could force it through. They have 51 votes and they could make it happen. But they're not doing it. Instead, they're going to the Republicans and saying, hey, Republicans, how can you force us to negotiate this down to almost nothing? Can you do that for us? Because the truth is the Democrats are fucking owned by these corporations too, and they don't actually want to do the things they're proposing. They want to propose them to look good and then go, the Republicans, what could we do? What could we do?
Isn't that? I mean, doesn't Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, aren't they like splitting the power now? Like it's 50-50 or something. It's not. They basically took their own majority away from them.
Yeah, there was a discussion about power sharing. I saw that. I don't quite understand the reality of that because people are flipping out like Schumer's giving up his power, but other people said that conversation about the power dynamic is done every time there's a 50-50 split. It's technically 51 with the vice president,
with
but
the VP, yeah.
But so I don't know that it's actually that different from the normality of when there's a 50-50 split. But to go back to this ending of fossil fuel subsidies, if it were to happen, I mean, it could be big, and also it's like such a fucking of course, end subsidy. Like when you talk about this in the past, you'd say we give billions of dollars to oil companies.
Yeah.
People like they would almost ignore me when I'd say it because they didn't think it was true or like I'm making it up. No, billions of dollars is handed to oil companies to fucking spill oil all across the country, destroy whole swaths of the country, and of course destroy the planet with fucking with the global greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, people. I think like 10 years ago, people like didn't really understand what a billion was. They're like, "Oh, this is a made up number." And now it's like, how many billionaires do we have? Where they're like, that's just Jeff. You know, Jeff being Jeff.
It's like 640 or something billionaires. It's like crazy.
Yeah, I feel like one is too many. But that's the thing. All of the stuff that he's doing is great for 2008. When people were yelling about it and they were like, this is insane. We shouldn't be giving this much money to the oil companies, or like, look at how much money people are making off of prisons. We should end this program. And in 2008, that would have made a really big difference. And now it's like, okay, cool. I guess we're finally practicing incrementalism 10 years too late. Like,
yeah, it is a little late. But the other thing is, if this happens, if he actually does it, it's like, don't thank, if they actually cut these subsidies, don't thank Biden. Thank fucking activists. Thank those of us who have been screaming about fossil fuels for decades. Thank the people that have been chaining themselves to pipelines. Same with him ending the Keystone XL. It's like absolutely great. It's the same. Obama also stopped the Keystone XL, and then Trump got it going again. And now Biden stopped it again. But don't thank Biden. Thank fucking activists that made it a national issue, because I can guarantee you Biden would not mention the Keystone XL if it wasn't a meme, if like end the Keystone XL wasn't a hashtag.
Right. Exactly. That's if it wasn't for all of the activists out there, even the activists on the campaign trail, they were like, "Hey, what are you going to do about these pipelines?" He was like, "Go vote for someone else." And now he's like, shit."
That was my friend Ed Fallon.
That's right.
Ed Fallon in Iowa went up to Biden, because in Iowa it's amazing because these people that are normally high national figures, you can't get near them or someone would shoot you in the head. But in Iowa, in the lead up to the first fucking primary, they've got to play like little pancake houses and stuff. So it's like Joe Biden standing on a rocking chair in the middle of an old age home with 12 people, 3 of them are awake, and it's pretty great. So anyway, you get access to them is the point. And Ed Fallon, a great climate activist in Iowa, he went up to Biden and was like, so I just want to know whether you're going to stop these pipelines, because you take money from fossil fuels, and we have to stop these pipelines. Climate change is important. And Biden just goes, what are you talking about? Vote for Trump then. Vote for Trump. And he goes, you're a Trump voter. And he's like, I didn't say I was a Trump. I'm not going to vote for Trump. And he's like,
that guy's fossil fuel policies. Like, why would a climate activist want to vote for Trump? But that's the thing, right? Is when they do this sort of stuff, they don't talk about the fact that there are activists on the ground that are fighting for it. they kind of revise history to be like, oh man, Joe Biden is he's fighting for the climate. He's doing so much good. They just kind of get to revise history that way. It's the same thing with ending the federal private prisons. It doesn't do that much good, but it revises history because you don't talk about the crime bill. You don't talk about how he advocated for mass incarceration. And it's the same thing with this. You're not talking about how he's owned by fossil fuel companies and all the shit that he did under the Obama administration, where they would go on and they would keep saying shit like, oh, it's an existential threat, and then let Exxon go drill in the Arctic, or Shell. Was it Shell or Exxon? One of them got a contract to go drill in the Arctic, and there were like kayakers that were preventing this oil tanker.
Oh yeah, the kayaktivists.
The kayaktivists, yeah. It's just like people don't remember this shit because they keep pumping bullshit like this, where they're like, oh, Biden's saving everybody by saying that we should get rid of tax subsidies for big fossil fuels, and oh, we should close down these federal private prisons. And it's like, no, that's happening because for decades activists have been on the ground screaming about this shit, and that's who deserved the credit. And Biden's just kind of doing it because if he doesn't, then it looks really bad, and then everybody's going to be like, you're kind of like Trump.
Yeah, the other factor is that the big oil has lost some of their pull, not all of it, but Exxon's been dropped from the whatever S&P 500 or something. There's reports that Exxon may never recover from the double punch to the face that was decreased oil usage with the pandemic, which also hit them. And so it really shows the decreased amount of power that big oil has. If they were Amazon or something, then this wouldn't be happening. So it's kind of death by a million bee stings. You've got to hit them at all levels. You've got to have activists stopping pipelines. You've got to have things to make causing oil to be more expensive. You've got to make people aware. It's just so many levels of kind of action.
Yeah, and same thing. It's like you have to go to and look at what Extinction Rebellion did. Was it 2 years ago where they like glued themselves to the doors of Congress? Was that Extinction Rebellion?
Some more friends of mine, Nick Rana. Yeah.
It's like, and I remember getting I talked to some liberal friends of mine, and they're like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. You don't do that sort of stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, but you're talking about it. It's got the whole climate change conversation going again." Like,
well, and not only are people talking about, but you've been put like human beings that actually want to have a sustainable future, that want to be alive in more than 20 years. There's nothing like you pushed us to the brink where what do you want us to do but glue ourselves to the doors of Congress? Like there's you have sidelined the ruling elite have sidelined and crushed every form of progressivism. I mean, obviously they did it with Bernie Sanders again in this last primary. And the real success of the Democratic Party this past year was not defeating Trump. I think they would have been okay losing to Trump. I mean, they would have loved to have that as a foil for another 4 years. But their big success was continuing to crush any little light of progressivism.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first key. The Democrats hate the progressives more than they hate the Republicans. That's been proven time and time again. And how, like, it's just one of those things. Whenever I hear Bernie Sanders sit there and say, "Oh, my friend Joe Biden," it's like, he's not your friend. He's actively tried to destroy your career. What do you? Friends don't do that.
And cause human extinction.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a friend. Like. That's what's funny. We brought up Assange, and one of the big things is like, oh, well, you can't have a beer with Assange. It's like, can you really have a beer with Joe Biden? Because if you go up to Joe Biden having a beer and you're like, hey, remember the '94 crime bill? He would throw the beer in your face and smash the bottle and try to stab you. Like these aren't.
And then as he was doing that, he would go, "What's the '92 crime bill?" He was like.
I watched the whole racial equity private prison speech that he gave, and like he, even during a prepared speech, like you can tell he's cognitively not doing okay because he keeps stumbling over like parts of the speech.
Similarly, he used to, during his kind of more formative years, during his earlier years, meaning the past 40, in the Senate, whenever he got a chance to talk, he would talk for like an hour. Like people couldn't shut him up. He would just see a television camera and go running to it and just never stop talking. Nowadays, even in the debates, he would be like mid-sentence and he'd be like, and another. Oh, my time's up. Because he doesn't, because every sentence is like a real effort. You can see it. You can see the like hamster trying to go around the wheel, like, ah! And it's a lot for him.
Yeah, and which is one of those things where it's like, why did you guys pick this guy? Well, to make him a puppet, but you know, it's really difficult to like watch him talk. It's like, I don't know, it's like it's like watching your grandfather have a really tough time like cut a steak, where it's just like, oh man, he used to be able to eat those raw. I watched him. He used to be able to just eat a cow raw, and now he's like having a real tough time cutting a steak. You know, like it's just, can we just let this guy retire and fade into the mist?
Yeah, seriously. Thank you, Smash Dragon, for the donation. All donations are going to mutual aid today. Various mutual aids across the country. Chris, we have some people asking about India. Do you have any updates on your country there?
Oh, the farmer strikes. I know that CNN finally started talking about them, and the only thing they can talk about is the only thing they talked about, though, was how violent it was. They didn't bring up any of the shit about how it's basically a neoliberal scheme to destroy small business farmers in India, and that's what the strike is really about. And they're also ignoring the fact that it's much like it was back in Thanksgiving, and I think you were one of the few people to cover it. It was like you, me, Graham Elwood, and maybe Jimmy Dore talked about it. And it's like 4 fucking asshole comedians decided to talk about the largest strike in human history. And the people we, you know, think are like the upper echelons of journalism were like, did you see the turkey we pardoned? It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, what do you, but like, it's ridiculous because the only thing CNN talked about was, oh my God, there's violence caused by this strike, and the reason why these strikers got upset was because the government and the cops gave them a specific route that they could march, and it was a route where they wouldn't really be seen by a whole bunch of people. So they got pissed and they broke the barricades and started marching where they were quote unquote not supposed to, right? Which is like, yeah, what really makes civil disobedience great is when you're told how to do it. Like,
well, this is standard operating procedure for our mainstream media is you find one quote unquote violent thing, and I've done many a segment on how breaking a window is not violence compared to the violence of the state. But anyway, they find one video of that or a fire or something, and that's all they focus on, because you could have a million peaceful protesters demanding something, and they're going to be like, this trash bin was set alight in our fair city. Gee willikers, the shenanigans, the scallywags have struck again. It's like, fuck you, but that's what that's the job of the corporate media, is to refocus your attention on not the issue.
Absolutely, because none of them really talked about really what the strike was about, and even if they do, they kind of frame it as, well, we don't understand. This seems like a really good thing, and basically what they did was the farmers were basically had a minimum that they would receive from the government when they sold their grains and agriculture and stuff. And they were like, oh, well, we'll just get rid of the middleman, and the government doesn't control any of this stuff. And now you can go directly to the vendor and charge whatever you want and get paid whatever you want. Free market, baby. It works all the time. Let's do it. And the farmers were like, this is a bad idea because big corporations are going to come in and basically rake us over the coals, and we're going to lose our livelihood. We're going to lose our farms. We're going to lose everything that we had. And they're already seeing it, because within the first month that it happened, they lost pretty much half their revenue. Like they were getting 3,000 rupees per bag of grain, and now they were getting 1,600 because there was no minimum that these vendors had to meet. And now they're just like, oh, I can get it for half the price. Of course I'm going to get it for half the price. So it's not helping farmers. And CNN and any sort of corporate media won't even talk about that. The way they talk about it is, oh, well, it's crazy that these guys are striking. They're giving them so much opportunity to make so much money on the free market.
Right.
It's
The
like,
quote unquote free market, the freedom to
right.
be crushed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very cringeworthy to kind of watch that sort of stuff happen. And clearly, like, you can see that, yes, the strikers broke through the barricades that were set up by the cops, but then the cops started firing flashbangs and tear gas into them. So, like, what do you want them to do? They're being hit with chemical weapons. You just want them to sit there and be like, we're still going to hold up our signs. No, like, how much patience do you want them to have?
Right. Right. And also, you can get to the point, the question, why is putting up a barricade? Why is that the law of the land?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the cops stuck a barricade there. Well, I don't respect your goddamn barricade. Like, well, I mean, that's the thing with all these nowadays in the U.S. Every march, every protest has to be permitted. Go get your permit, and it's like, no, you don't need a note from the hall monitor to have a protest. That's the point of a protest. That's the whole goddamn thing, is that it's not permitted. Like,
well, I mean, there was that declassified FBI document that came out where J. Edgar Hoover said if they just signed the permission slip, the Black Panthers could have given food to whoever they wanted. That was the whole problem, obviously, is that there was no permission slip from
if they just applied for a license, we wouldn't have gunned them down in their beds while they slept. That's all we needed.
Exactly. Fred Hampton would have been fine if he would have just had a signed document that said, it's okay, don't shoot me. How were they supposed to know, Lee?
I know. Yeah, it's true. It's not like they were tapping their phones or anything.
Yeah.
So what you're in Pittsburgh. I don't know if we have any fellow Pittsburghers watching, but how is it there?
It's fine. It's quiet, right? It's cold is what it is. But
I thought 75%, maybe 90% of Pittsburgh's economy was based on bars and taverns.
Kind of. We do love to drink here. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the venues here are hanging on by a thread, and a lot of the controversy we have now is there's a bunch of restaurants, because we're so close to, like, being Pennsylvania. There's a bunch of restaurants that are like, we don't really give a shit about the governor's orders or about public health. We're gonna be 100% capacity. We're gonna open it up and wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. It doesn't matter. Just buy our chicken wings. Like, that's happened in a couple places. So that's been very infuriating to see, especially when you're seeing, like, the numbers going up and hospitals running out of beds, and, you know, new variants of this thing coming out every day. Where somebody just told me that there's
maybe they could put hospital beds in the bars and two birds, one stone.
If they did that, I feel like that would solve a lot of problems. That's what they need to do. Is they need to create triage centers at the dive bar. That's going to be a problem for some of them, because you can smoke indoors in some of them. So.
Seriously, they still have that? Wow.
Georgia has a bunch of them too. It's Georgia. I believe the county in Atlanta is, one side has to be 21 and up, and one side has to be 18 and up. And on the 21 and up side, as long as there's a door between the two sides, they can get a indoor smoking license. In Pennsylvania, I think in Allegheny County, it's food sales. If your food sales are below 25% of your overall sales, then yeah, you can smoke indoors.
Nowadays, the smoking in the bars might be useful, because you can actually watch the COVID cloud come towards you from a distance. You'd be like, here it comes. You can maybe duck or something.
Yeah. Just wave at it real fast.
Yeah. Just wave.
Yeah,
all right. We're almost finished here, but I assume not a lot of comedy touring going on right now, but where can people follow your stuff?
Yeah, you can follow me at my website, which is krishmohanhaha.com, KRISHMOHAN.
Chris Mohan.
Yes.
Chris Mohan.
And that's also my Twitter handle and Instagram handle. I'm also on minds.com. and I do a weekly live stream on Fridays, and I pretty much put up content every day on my channels.
Did you
and
say it was chrismohan.com?
chrismohanhaha.com.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna type it in here for people.
It's KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. I had to figure out that.
There a sale on H's? Jesus.
Somebody bought, there was a friend of mine that bought chrismohan.com as like a favor to me and redirected it to my site. And then he just dropped from all social media. So I have like no way to get a hold of him see how to transfer that URL over to me. But it runs out in May. So in May, I might own chrismohan.com.
One day, one can hope. Well, when I first started, I had leecamp.net because leecamp.com was a Korean porn site. So I had to wait. I had to wait 10 years. Although when I finally got leecamp.com, I was kind of sad because the joke about leecamp.com being a Korean porn site was something I enjoyed telling. So, I mean, not that it's a joke. It was true, but I think I had some tags and stuff.
That's awesome. I will say that I do miss being on the road like all the time. It's one of those things where like I'm pretty sure at one point I had a dream that I was performing and I woke up and I was like, oh man, did I do well? I don't even know if I did well in my dream. Like,
you probably know more about America than almost anyone, because even though I grew up in the South and I lived in New York City and then now I'm in DC and I've played every state in the union except Alaska and Hawaii, I think. But the difference is I can go to those places and not have, at least in some of them, a guy glaring at me and going, "You're not from around here, are you, boy?" So you got like a whole other view of America.
It's interesting. I talked about this with Ron Placone earlier this week too. Is like I have faced more like people when they walk out of my show. It's been more liberals that walked out of my show than conservatives, because I think conservatives were.
You mean like walked out, like stormed out mid-show, like
mid-show. They're like, we're done with this,
right,
and it's usually like the vote blue no matter who. Like we have a vacation home in the Finger Lakes kind of folks that come to the show because they're like, oh, immigrant comedian, that's exciting, what a cool thing and then they hear me talk and I'm like, here's how we burned down Wall Street, and they're like, well, this is, I have investments, I went and saw the bull, I have a photo with it, this is not what we
well, because you're outside what their little tiny bubble allows. So
and they get mad, and usually like the true lefties that enjoy the show, they'll get me drunk, and then the conservatives that wind up staying to the end, they're just like, we've never heard any of this shit before. And I was like, let me introduce you to everything outside Fox News. It's a big bright world. Have you heard about Karl Marx?
And they were like, wait, the guy that runs the gas station?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, he wrote a book.
Yeah, a few years back.
I always carry a copy of Das Kapital with me.
To defend yourself against the liberals that are coming at you.
The thick book.
All right, man. Well, it's good to hang out again. Hopefully we'll be touring together sometime in 2021.
Yes. Fingers crossed. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. That would be great.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, Lee.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us, me and Chris Mohan. Hope we had a little fun. We had a little revolution, and got to continue the fight. You guys are wonderful, and thanks for the donations. All of the donations are going to mutual aid. If you haven't heard of mutual aid, look it up in your city. It's not in every city, but it's in a lot of them. And everyone there is volunteers, and they're all helping people get food and get supplies and everything else. So it's a great cause, but it also is about community. It's about building up your community. It's the idea of we help those in our community who need it, and for those of us who don't need it, we're there to help. It's that kind of thing. So look it up and help out. Let's see if I see any questions. Thank you for all the comments, by the way. Let's see. If you're watching this later, by the way, you obviously can't do the super chat, but you could donate to mutual aid by looking it up online. And by the way, I do these every single weekday, except sometimes, and they're at leecamp.com. Look them up there because you might not be alerted to my feed because I'm heavily suppressed. So yeah, check it out there. Anyway, thanks everybody, and I will talk to you soon. Keep fighting.